Number 1 says define, oh, sorry, almost forgot to put the name of my favorite student. Number 1 says define acceleration, and is acceleration a vector? Let's answer the second part first. Does acceleration have direction? Does direction matter? Does which way you're accelerating change what happens? Yes, it does. Acceleration is a vector. We've shown that by using a negative for slowing down if we're going horizontally. We've shown that by using a negative for downwards if we're going vertically. Oh, we got a PA announcement already. Maybe they're going to be going all day. Is acceleration a vector? Yes, it is. Define acceleration. You could define it as a change in velocity. If you wrote change in velocity, I would take several definitions. Oh, we have a latecomer. So you could say that for acceleration. You could write out change in velocity. Oh, you could actually say this. You could get the A by itself from our velocity equation. Anybody write anything else that they want to bounce off me? I can tell them a yay or a nay. Yeah. Which is, what'd you write?
Acceleration is the rate of velocity change.
Rate of velocity change, I totally take that. It's how fast your velocity is changing. Yep. Okay. So 1 mark for saying yes, 1 mark for a good definition. Number 2, an accelerating body must at all times have positive velocity. Can you have a negative velocity and still be accelerating? Yeah, free fall. Okay. So, no. An accelerating body must at all times have an increasing speed. No. Negative acceleration, you'll have a decreasing speed, but you're still accelerating. Have a changing direction. You know what? It's got to be that one. It's that one, isn't it? D. Mr. Duick, what happened to number 3 and number 4? I nuked them and didn't feel like renumbering everything. All right. A car's velocity decreases from 25 to 5 in a time interval of 8 seconds. Okay. I would say A equals question mark. I'm good with that. Diego, what's this 25? What's this 25? VI, I totally agree. What's that 5? And T is 8. We're going to use VF equals VI plus AT, but when you rewrote it, what equation did that end up becoming when you got the A by itself?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Totally. Absolutely. So it's going to be 5 take away 25 divided by 8. We are going to get a negative answer. This is negative 20 over 8, which is the same as negative 10 over 4, which is the same as negative 5. Is it 2.5? Meters per second squared. And as usual, 1 mark for the equation, half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answers. 5 to me is a good question. I told you there was a couple of questions in here that were phrased badly. I'll let you know when we get to them. 6, why did I say average acceleration? Because the acceleration of the bus when they're braking, it's probably not constant. They probably slow down quicker at the beginning and ease up at the end, but we can't handle that. So again, it looks like it wants us to find A. In fact, this is the same question, Diego, except VI is 30 and VF is 0. I saw the word stops. Time is 6 seconds. So it's going to be A equals VF minus VI over T. That's a messy A. It's going to be 0 minus 30 all over 6. Did you all get negative 5 meters per second squared? Okay. How big is an acceleration of negative 5? What's 1g? How big is 1g? You all know this. What's a nice round number close to that? This is about a half a g. Okay. Wow, I didn't give you any room for number 7. I'm going to have to fix the spacing on this. I'm going to do number 7 right here and then number 8 beneath it. It looks like it wants us to find VF. It looks like VI is 103 A is, I saw the slows down, it's -5. T is 7.5. I'm going to use VF equals VI plus AT. It's going to be 103 plus -5 times 7.5. This one I'll do on my calculator. It's going to be 103 plus -5 times 7.5. 65.5. If you miss the negative, if you missed the slowdown, and if you said 140.5, I would give you 1.5 out of 2. And this is meters per second. Starting to see why I said it was worth memorizing units? It really is. Number 8. How long? You know what? That's asking me to find time. Looks like VI is 2. Looks like VF is 10. And it looks like A is 3.5, and we're speeding up. So it's positive. It's the same equation that Diego mentioned earlier. It's going to be based on VF equals VI plus AT. But I guess, Diego, when I get the T by itself, it looks like this. VF minus VI, we divide the A over. Okay. 10 minus 2 divided by 3.5. Ugh, this is going to be yucky. 10 minus 2 divided by 3.5. You'll get, I'll go I would take 2.29. I would take 2.3. If you said 2.28, I would take a half mark off. And it's time, seconds. Number 9, what must your initial... Oh, I guess this wants me to find VI. It looks like A is 3.2. It looks like VF is 20. It looks like T is 3.3. I'm still using VF equals VI plus AT. I tried to come up with basically every possible version of using that equation. So here it is. How would I get the VI by itself? I think VI is going to be VF minus AT. I think I would minus that whole thing over. So it's going to be 20 minus 3.2 times 3.3. 20 minus 3.2 times 3.3. Did you all get 9.44? People nodding? And that would be meters per second. Number 10 is 3 marks. What does 3 marks mean? I probably have to find something in order to find something. So it looks like it wants me to find how fast it's traveling after. When I see the word after, that suggests to me, I think it wants me to find a V final, after. Looks like VI is 0. And it looks like time is not 12, it's 7.5 for what they want me to find. I said to myself, you know what? If I could find A, I'm good. So I drew a little line and I said, maybe I can find A. Well, we still started out at rest, but they told me that when T is 12, VF is 30. I can use Diego's equation, A equals VF minus VI all over T. 30 minus 0 all over 12. 30 minus 0 all over 12. Do that in your head. Divide by 6, divide by 6. It's going to be 5 over 2. Is it 2.5? It is. Okay. And now I can walk this there, and I can say VF equals, you know what? I don't even need to write VI. It equals AT. It equals 2.5 times 7.5. Here's our final answer. Is it 18.75? If you wrote that, I'd give you full credit. 18.8? Yes. If you said 18.7, I would take a half mark off. That would get you 3 out of 3. If I was marking this, I would give you probably 1 mark if I saw that, half mark for finding A, 1 mark if I saw that, half mark for finding VF, or something like that. I'd split it down the middle. Number 11 says, what's the velocity of a freely falling object dropped? Looks like they want me to find VF. In fact, I said, you know what? For each of these, I'm going to go VF equals AT. VI is 0. And so I think for part A, when you go negative 9.8 times 2, negative 19.6, is that correct? And for part B, when you go negative 9.8, because it's in free fall, so I know A is negative 9.8, it's going to be 58.8? No, 58 point, I can't remember. Well, 58.8, I was right? Negative, yes?
Yes.
Meters per second. Number 12, I would never let this, yeah?
Is it 2 marks in total or each?
2 marks each. That's why it says 2 marks each. See? So what I would have done, by the way, is I would have given you 1 mark if I saw the numbers, 1 mark for the answer, 1 mark if I saw the numbers, 1 mark for the answer. Number 12, I'm not wild about the phrasing. You have to assume it dropped. On a test, I would make sure Riley, who's not foolishly looking at anything else but the quiz, right? Right? Right. Especially showing up late, right? Right. You're going to have to assume that it dropped. On the test, I would say something like, in brackets, assume that we're dropping it, or I would include the word dropped somewhere in the question. So that's one of the reasons I decided I'm not counting this quiz, that some of the questions are worded vaguely. I didn't mind that because I wanted you to realize, oh, I have to make that assumption. That's also, I think, Joanna, something good worth noticing, but here we go. How long? So it wants me to find time. We'll assume VI is 0. We know A is negative 9.8. I think I'm going to use T equals VF minus VI over A for all of these. So for the first one, if I go bracket negative 24.5 minus 0, I probably didn't need to type the minus 0 divided by negative 9.8. 2.5 seconds for A. And B, I got a good calculator, so I'm just going to backspace and edit and replace the 24.5 with the 63.7. 6.5 seconds. These would be 2 marks each, Ari, and the way you could tell is it says 2 marks each, so I'll give you 2 marks, 2 marks. Number 13 as well, it asks how far, but again here you have to assume that we dropped it. I would make sure on a test I told you we're dropping it. So we're going to use, I think, what are we going to use? Oh, they gave me times. We're going to use D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. Although VI is 0, I could have got away without even writing that. So it's going to be for part A, D equals negative 9.8 times 2 squared over 2. You get negative 19.6 meters. And then for part B, it's going to be D equals negative 9.8 times 6 squared all over 2. Negative 176.4. Negative 176. So again, I usually round to 3 sig figs. It's just a habit. Alex, it's because on the old Physics 12 provincial, they wanted every answer to go to 3 sig figs. So I started training kids in Physics 11 so they wouldn't inadvertently lose silly marks because they rounded off to the wrong number of sig figs. Are we? So I would take a half mark off each time. Oh, no, you know what? No. I said how far. I didn't say what's the displacement. I would have to, in this, accept a positive answer because I didn't specifically say to you, tell me the displacement. So I would live with a positive answer because how far is vague. So yeah, I'll have to give you 2. I would still like to know how you got the positive answer.
I'm like 90% sure.
I stopped caring about you a while ago. Okay, here we go. Anybody been to the CN Tower? Okay, because this is how high it is. They now have something, I believe, where you can walk around the outside of the tower, and they strap you into a harness, and you can fall forward, and the harness brings you to it. Like you can lean out over, basically, so you're horizontal. I think I could do that, but I'd have to be there and find out if I could psych myself up to do that. Anyways, first thing I actually did, because I saw the word dropped, I said we are ending up below. Sarah Ashley, I crossed out the 533 and put a negative there just so I wouldn't accidentally forget. It wants me to find time. So VI is 0. A is negative 9.8. D is negative 533.3. I like this question. I like this question. I like this question. Here's what I mean. What equation are we going to use to find time? I think it's D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. Don't write this down. Just watch, please. Can we solve this equation for time? If you've seen the quadratic formula, you can. But what was VI in this situation? Which means this vanishes. This version here is absolutely going to be on your test tomorrow, where you realize, oh, VI is 0. Mr. Dewick gave me a break, and you need to get the T by itself here. We did this in the reaction time lab as well. This is how you calculated your reaction time. There is going to be, I'll just tell you, I put the reaction time lab on your test as the last question. So those of you that did the reaction time, I just recreated it. I thought of all the activities that we did, one of them should go on your test. That's the only question that's not on your study guide, but that is on your test. How would I get the T by itself? How will I move the A over? Divide? What about that 2? And then it gives me a T squared, so square root. It's going to be this. The D stays where it is. We would times by 2, divide by A, square root. That equals T. Now, the nice thing about this is, suppose you missed that D was negative. You would go like this. 2 times 533.3 divided by negative 9.8. When you try taking the square root of that, you get an error. That usually means you've probably subtly missed a negative somewhere. Go hunting. I like that the universe is tapping you on the shoulder. And it is actually right here. It's saying, hey, you told me you're accelerating down, but ended up 500 meters above from where you started from? No! No! So, it's going to be the square root of 2 times negative 533.3 divided by negative 9.8. 2 times negative 533.3 divided by negative 9.8, and then I square root that. 10.4 seconds? That's a fair bit of free fall time from that tower. A few years ago for New Year's Eve, I think a stuntman did a long bungee jump from there, but he was getting slowed down part ways, so he was in the air for longer. 10.4 seconds. How fast would the rock be moving? I could use my answer from A and go like that. And if you did that, I'd give you full credit as long as you got it right. But just in case I got B wrong, I would probably use VF squared equals VI. Actually, VI is 0. I would probably use VF squared equals 2AD square root. The only risk with this one is when I plug in the numbers, 2 times negative 533.3 times negative 9.8, and hit my square root button. Oh, square root button properly. Why is 102 wrong? I don't know what that means. Are you pointing at your paper, or are you trying to give me... I have to insert the negative, and it's specifically when I use this equation, and if I know that we're going down, unfortunately my calculator will assume we're going up. So negative 102 meters per second. The nice thing about using VF equals VI plus AT is if you go negative 9.8 times 10.4, that does include the negative. So that's one advantage of using your answer to find an answer. They kind of outweigh each other in my mind. If you missed the negative, I would give you 1.5 out of 2. The next question that I thought was a little bit sneaky was number 15. Number 15, I haven't asked one like this. How many times farther does a freely falling object fall in 10 seconds than in 1 second? What? The first thing I had to figure out is, how do I figure out how many times bigger something is? Let's suppose that Finley has $2 and Declan has $10. How many times more money does Declan have than Finley? 5 is correct. What would you do with a 10 and a 2 to get a 5? How can you use a 10 and a 2 and get 5 as an answer? Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go the bigger one divided by the smaller one. So I've got my strategy. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how far we fall in 10 seconds. I'll call that D10. How far we fall in 1 second. I'll call that D1. And then I'll divide them. I think here, again, for number 15, you have to assume dropped, which is why this question would never make it on the test. It's going to be D equals a half AT squared. Negative 9.8 times 10 squared over 2. In 10 seconds, you fall negative 490 meters. In 1 second, you fall negative 4.9 meters. I think final answer, in 10 seconds, you fall 100 times further. 100 times further. If you got that, I would give you 3 out of 3, and I would say, well done, because I deliberately did not include that in any of the homework. I wanted to see how you would handle a curveball on a quiz. Okay? There's another way to do that, noticing that it's a t squared. Basically, you could have gone, 10 times the amount of time, 10 squared the distance. Right, Riley? Right. You're looking at your calculator every time I see you looking over there, right? I hope so. Otherwise, really and truly put your phone away. Okay? 16a, how fast? VF equals VI plus VI squared, Mr. Duke? No, VI plus AT, I think is what I'm going to use here. VI is 0. It says it was parked. So it's going to be 1.1 times 6.5. I can do that in my head. It's going to be like 11 times 65. It's going to be 7.15. Is that right? Meters per second. Mr. Dewick, because it said downhill, I actually let that be negative. I would give you full credit for that. This question, you could do it either way. You could say forwards is positive because downhill is forwards. You could say down is negative. I would take both. There's no hard, fast rule there. How far? I think I would use D equals a half AT squared, where A is 1.1, T is 6.5. Don't forget the squared. All over 2. You get 23.2 meters. A motorbike accelerates at a constant rate from a standing start. I think that's another way to say from rest. Oh yeah, it even says starting from rest. Ooh. Bryce, how many marks is number 17 worth? I'll bet you I'm going to have to find something in order to find something. Again, that's not good physics. That's just good. You've written tests before. Hey, usually questions that are worth more require more steps, right? For those of you who are wondering, in Physics 12, a typical question is worth 7 marks. It'll be 5 or 6 or you get there in Physics 12. We build to it. Anyways, it looks like they want me to find time when VI is 0 and VF is 16. I said to myself, you know what? If I could find the acceleration, then I'm good. I went to the beginning of the question and it said when time is 1.8 and VI is 0, VF is 9.9. I went, ha! I can find the acceleration. A is going to be VF minus VI over T. It's going to be 9.9 minus 0 all over 1.8. It's going to be, is it 6.5? 5.5, right? Yeah, it's 11 divided by 2 when I simplify it in my head. Yeah, 5.5 meters per second squared. And now I can walk that to there and go T equals VF minus VI over A. 16 minus 0 all over 5.5. 16 minus 0 all over 5.5. And I get 2.91. I would be fussy if you said 2.90. I would take a half mark off. 2.91 seconds or 2.9 seconds, but not 2.90. Number 18, an aircraft starts from rest. I would probably underline the phrase from rest. It looks like it wants me to find A. I think, let's see, I have VI is 0, VF is 48, T equals 12. I would use A equals VF minus VI over T. Do you end up with an acceleration of 4 meters per second squared? Doing that in my head quickly, cutting corners a little bit. After 16 seconds, I'm going to go VF equals VI plus AT. Now, this is a question where I have to use an answer to find an answer. There's no way that I can get this without going, you know what, Mr. Dewick, VI is 0. You could have skipped that. Without going 4 times 16. So there will be on your test one question or two where I'll set it up so that you have to use an answer to find an answer. How far will it be after 15 seconds? I would probably use D equals AT squared over 2, where A is 4, time is 15, don't forget the squared, all over 2. 15 squared is 225 times 2, is it 450? Meters. Number 19, what's the acceleration of a mountain bike which slows from 15 to 10, slows down? I think I'm going to get a negative acceleration here. Because I think VI is 15, VF is 10, and T is 3.25. I think I'm going to end up going A equals VF minus VI over T. It's going to be 10 minus 15 all over 3.25. 10 minus 15 divided by 3.25. Do you get negative 1.54? Meters per second squared. Not a very big acceleration. Compare that to number 20. Number 20, here's a motorcycle accident. Now this looks like it's a motorcycle racer because I see a haystack. I know they use hay in a lot of motorcycle races. So probably this person's wearing padding and racing gear and helmet and everything. Probably they would survive, but it was a pretty big acceleration here, if I recall. They want me to find A. VF is 0. VI is 42. And D is 5.7. I think I'm going to end up using VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. Now, Josh, I want to get the A by itself. How am I going to do that? Let's see. The VF squared would drop down like a domino. minus VI squared all over 2D. It's going to be 0 squared minus 42 squared all over 2 times 5.7. 0 squared minus 42 squared all over bracket 2 times 5.7. And I get, negative 155. So about 15 G's. Probably this person would survive, but they're probably taking a trip in an ambulance.
Negative 154.7.
If you wrote that, I'd accept that. I'm going to go negative 154 actually, I'm just going to write negative 155 meters per second squared. Right? And that's meters per second squared. That's not G's. Divide by 9.8 to convert that to G's. That's a messy squared. Number 21. This is kind of a neat one. I got a video of this. On August 19th, a world record was set by cliff jumping from a height of 58 meters into water. Cliff jumping? First thing I did, Jada, was cross out that 58.8 and make it negative because we're on a cliff. How fast was he traveling? Well, I think I can assume VI was 0. I've never seen a cliff jumper try and jump down. They step off generally, okay? A is negative 9.8. D is negative 58.8. So here, I think I'm going to use VF squared equals VI squared, which is 0, plus 2AD. And then I'll square root. It's going to be the square root of 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 58.8. 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 58.8. Square root answer button. Why is 33.9 wrong? This is again that unique situation where I have to add the negative on my own afterwards. It's going down. So negative 33.9 meters per second, which is pretty fast. Times by 3.6. 122 kilometers per hour is what he's hitting the water at. It's pretty fast. How long was the jumper in free fall for? I think I would use, D equals AT squared over 2. VI is 0. I know A. I know D. They want me to find T. How would I get the T by itself? Again, it's going to be times by 2. Divide by A. That gives me T squared. How to get rid of a squared? Square root. It's going to be the square root of 2 times negative 58.8 divided by negative 9.8. 2 times negative 58.8 divided by negative 9.8. Square root of 12. 3.46. If the water took 3.5 meters to bring the jumper to a stop, what was the deceleration? I think this is asking me to find the acceleration, but we'll get a negative answer because we're slowing down. So I went, okay, A equals question mark. Looks like D is 3.5. To a stop, VF is 0. That's only 2 things. I need 3 things to find the 4th. What else do I know? Yeah. He jumped off the cliff. So how would I use that here? VI equals 0? I think I disagree because if VF and VI are both 0, A is 0 because there was no change in velocity. Joanne? VI when I hit the water is VF at the bottom of the jump. How fast was I traveling when I started to come to a stop? Alex, the same speed as I hit the water because that's when I switched from free fall to being slowed down. Okay. Then it's going to be A equals VF squared minus VI squared all over 2D. It's going to be 0 squared minus negative 33.9 squared in brackets all over 2 times 3.5. Bracket 0 squared minus bracket negative 33.9 squared. No, hang on, Mr. Dewick. The squared goes there. Divided by bracket 2 times 3.5. Whew. I think I typed that in right. I got negative 164. Okay. And then D has 2 parts. The first part you could probably do in your head. How many G's did the jumper experience while in free fall? 1. What about when the jumper hit the water? How would I change that negative 164 into G's? What do I do? Divide by 9.8. So, answer button, divide by 9.8. I get negative 16.8. The magnitude of 1G is positive. So to convert an answer into G's, you divide by positive 9.8 because that's the magnitude of 1G. We're not getting we don't want to change the direction here. We just want to convert the units. Okay? Is 16.8 G's a lot? Yeah. Put your pencils down, look up. I have a video of this.